In this video, I'm going to show you how to set up a Windows Server 2022 domain controller. To get started, we're going to make a copy of our child virtual hard disk that we created in the previous episode. And I'm going to call mine qts-dc1.corp.qtslabs.com. Go ahead and hang on to that there. With that created, now I'm going to spin up this virtual machine. Gen 2. I'm going to go ahead and give it 2 gigs of RAM. Generally speaking, Active Directory is not very memory intensive. And instead of creating a new virtual disk, I'm just going to point it to that existing virtual disk and hit finish. Perfect. So now we'll make sure Secure Boot's enabled, and we're going to enable the TPM. One processing core will be okay. It will be a little slow, but that's all right. We'll disable time sync. Use automatic checkpoints. There's no need for it to start automatically, and otherwise we are good to go. Now, as you'll see, for those of you who are not familiar with differencing disks, what's going to happen here is it's only going to write the changes that are different from the base image. So instead of having to make a whole copy of that 12, 13 gigabyte image, we only need the differences between the two disks. So we'll go ahead and wait for that to come on up. And it may reboot once or twice, but that's perfectly normal. And now we'll be dropped at the password screen. Well, first we'll get the region and language, which is all default and fine. We're not going to enter a product key right now. We'll accept the terms and we will set our super secure password here. Excellent. And we're going to go ahead and log into the machine. Perfect. So we get to the desktop here. And we can select yes, that is perfectly fine. And as you can see, our changes have held. There's no Edge, no Internet Explorer, but 7-Zip and Notepad+ are present. Now what we can do is go ahead and assign our VM a static IP. You want to make sure your DCs have static IPs. You can see at this point it's just grabbed a DHCP IP out of the pool. So we're going to uncheck IPv6 since we're not using it. And I'm going to assign mine 192.168.99.11. And for now, we're going to point it at public DNS. And it'll take a second, but as you can see, we are now connected back on the internet. And I'm going to disable Server Manager from starting up on its own. And at this point, we're going to want to go ahead and set our computer name. So I'm going to go ahead and set that. Oopsies. And allow the system to reboot. Type in our super secure password. And as you can see, we are back at the desktop. Server Manager will no longer start on its own, but we're going to go ahead and start it so that we can proceed. We'll give it a second to load in here. And it looks like we are ready to go. Perfect. We'll skip that page by default. We're going to check the box for Active Directory domain services. It'll automatically install the required roles and features. There will not be a reboot until after we have configured Active Directory. Depending on the speed of your server, this process may take some time. So I'm going to go ahead and allow this process to complete, and I will come back to you when we are ready to set up Active Directory. All right. At this point, we can click on Promote this server to a domain controller. We're going to create a new forest, and our root domain is going to be corp.qtslabs.com. We're going to put in a super secure password for DSRM. Next. And it'll choose a NetBIOS name. It's going to default to that top level, or that, not top level, subdomain. I'm going to change it to QTS. Hit next, and it'll be fine. There will be a couple warnings here, but they're nothing we need to be concerned about. And install. Perfect. At this point, the server will automatically reboot and become a domain controller. This process doesn't generally take all that long, but I'm going to go ahead and pause here and come back when it is ready to go. As you can see, it'll automatically reboot now. It did complete the domain controller promotion. Now this first boot up after it becomes a domain controller can take some time, but subsequent boot ups are generally pretty fast. And again, I'll just pause here until we reach the login screen. All right, we are at the login screen. We'll go ahead and log in. Now on domain controllers, you will be unable to log in as a local user going forward. But on servers that are joined to the domain that are not domain controllers, you can log in either as a local account or as a domain account. Fire up Active Directory users and computers here. And we'll also fire up domains and trusts. There it is. We'll minimize out of that for the moment. You can see here that it has successfully built out, and if we expand this a little bit more here, we can see now that our computer name is fully qualified there. And under domain controllers, we'll find our DC. And under users, we'll find our built-in administrator account. On the domains and trust side, we go to manage here, I believe. Oopsies, that's not the one I wanted. Oh, I clicked on the wrong thing. That's not what I'm looking for. Here it is. So when you click on properties of domains and trusts, you can set a UPN, an alternative UPN suffix. Now, this depends on what you're planning on doing. I am planning on deploying Exchange in this lab. So in order to make our emails properly formed, I'm going to add qtslabs.com as a UPN suffix. The other thing I'm going to do is create an OU, and I always like to call it the company name, which in this case we're just going to call QTS. Actually, I don't know why I did that way. I'm going to call it QTS Labs. It's our fictional company. Then I like to create another OU underneath there, corp.qtslabs.com. This may seem a little bit repetitive, but if you ever set up other domains within the forest, then you can still keep this naming scheme going. And then I usually set up an accounts OU and a machines OU. And this a lot of this depends on if you're planning on how much you're planning on taking advantage of group policy, because group policy runs just by default. And then I'll create a users, service accounts. Okay, and under here, I'll create an OU called servers and another OU called workstations. Okay, and for now, that's it. We can optionally create an account if we wanted to here. Why don't we go ahead and do that actually, just to show that. We'll create a new user here. And I'll just call it, it'll just be my name. And we can take advantage of that new suffix there and just create charles@qtslabs.com. And I'll just set it so that my password doesn't expire. Another super secure password. And there's my account. I can now go in here and give it permissions to do things. Like, we'll make it a domain admin. Just to see. And we could also take that away if we wanted to, like so. What I like to do is just grant it remote desktop, or remote desktop users. In this case, it would be administrators. And that should be sufficient privileges to get us logged in here. And you can see we can actually log in with that, that suffix there. And that is sufficient privileges to get ourselves logged in here. And now we're in our new user profile. You can see Edge and Internet Explorer still stay gone, but Server Manager will launch because we're running under a new profile. And we'll just disable Server Manager here, so it'll stay out of our way. We do have administrative rights, but they are very limited administrative rights. We can still interact here, but we wouldn't be able to affect the schema or anything at this point. In general, I would say it's best practice to have an account that has either limited or no administrative rights, and then use an administrative account only when necessary to elevate yourself. Thank you for watching this video on setting up an Active Directory domain controller. I hope you enjoyed, and I'll see you in the next one.